Yeah, so we had done the verse number 28 of the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. There was a bit of commentary part left, and we were discussing these three types of people. We first discussed about the activities, then we discussed about what kind of kartas are there. Okay, and we have discussed just before that, we discussed their jnana, and we also talked about their buddhi and jnana, and finally we're discussing about the kind of kartas they are. And the first one who qualifies is Satvika is Mukta Sangur Anahangvadi Dhrityutsaha Samanvitaha Siddhya Siddhyor Nirvikaraha Karta Satvika Uchyate. He's somebody who is very balanced person, and we have discussed at length about it in the previous class. On the other hand, the Rajasika person is somebody who is moved by the force of his passion or will. Ragi Karma Phala Preksu Lubdho Hinsatmako Suchihi. And Harsa Shokanvitaha Karta Rajasaha Parigetitaha. And why Asuchi? You might say that because he's doing a lot of Yagadi Karma with Phalakamana. We discussed that earlier also in different Shraddhatre Vibhagi Yoga. Why are you talking about Asuchi? Because he's not having this Suddhanta Karana, and sometimes he doesn't have that purity. And then the worst kind is the Ayuktaha. That means asamahitaha. Ayuktaha is not disconnected from himself. Ayuktaha prakritaha. Prakritaha is what? Asanskritaha, who is not very refined, who is not a very cultured person. Stabdaha. He doesn't care for even superiors or elders, or he doesn't know whom to respect, whom not to respect. It's kind of a dumb kind of a person who is what you call the best way to describe is somebody who is a little obstinate and obdurate, somebody who is inflexible. Whatever he thinks is perfect is something that he's going to stick to. He's not going to change his opinion. He's not going to entertain any new ideas. Whatever he's stuck with, he's stuck with. And Satha also. He's also a little manipulative and nice critical. And he might do certain good things or bad things, all kinds of things he'll do. Alasaha is and lazy, vishadi, all the time having depression because there's a huge gap between what he aspires for and what is his capacity, what his skill level, and what his agraha, shraddha is all about. And then he's also somebody who is very good at procrastination, dirgha sutri, all the time postpones, and chakarta. That kind of a guy is tamasha uchyate. Sankara Bhashya we had finished, is it? Or we were just left with Madhusudana of that? Or we had just done the Moolam? Chinmay, if you remember? Oh.
Swamiji, we have done, I think, Shankara Bhashya.
Shankara Bhashya.
Left.
Okay.
Yes,
so
sir.
we'll quickly just touch the Madhusudana Saraswati's commentary on this. Ayuktaha Sarvada Visaya Apahrita Chitattvena. Because his mind is hijacked by objects of desire. So he cannot think clearly. He's so much obsessed with, I want to have a car. So he organizes all his thoughts for the day around the acquisition of a car. So he'll organize everything. I want to have it. Therefore, all of the vivekana, any kind of logical thinking or any kind of, any rational thinking, no. It has to be organized around that particular desire, which powerful desire that he has. Prakritaha, Sastra or Sanskritaha. He's not refined by some bit of exposure to literature and arts and philosophy. Essentially, somebody, it's not about formal education. It's somebody who doesn't have any interest, You'll meet a lot of people amongst yourself, around you. They would find some interesting book on your table, but they have no curiosity at all. And they have absolute distaste for men of letters, somebody who reads a little, thinks a little. They think these are lazy guys. Okay, that's how they look at them. They think these are pointless guys, are wasting others' time. And then buddhi valasama, the mind is a little childish because they do not have the right sort of vivechana, the kind of discrimination which is expected of a person, cultured person. That is prakrita. They might sometimes appear to be very affectionate. They might appear to be very friendly, but moved by the nature of things. I mean, the natural aspect of them. Even children, a little boy smiles, he hugs. So far, you fulfill their desires, they're very good to you. So the tamasic people are very much like that, that kind of karta. So they will quickly respond if you. So these are the things we need to sort of keep in mind while dealing with people in life. So these are the tamasic people. And sabdo guru devata adishu api anamraha, and they don't care. They have very fixed understanding that we will do it. We don't care for the rest. So they don't know how to sit. They might go to an acharya. Like for example, in traditional parlance, you are supposed to wait for him to offer you a seat or sit on the floor in traditional cultural settings. They might go and sit right in front of that person. They don't know how to see it, and they don't know how to pay respect. These kinds of things I mentioned here. Satah paravansanartham anyatha janan api anyatha vadi. They know a certain thing. If you ask them how to do this particular thing, they know how that has to be done, but they will not tell you the truth because they think whether I can extract something from it. Although for the fun of it, they might mislead you. Even if you ask for the address of a particular place or destination, there are a lot of such people who will be so-called street guys. They might just mislead you just for the fun of it, and they have no, any wrong attitude towards you. They don't hate you or anything, but they are like that. I say it's the very nature of these people. And nice kritikah swasmin upakaritva brahmam utpadya parabritti uchchadanena swarthavaraha. So, for example, um, they might actually terminate somebody else's livelihood or something someone is doing because they're seeing, no, I need to have it. And so, extremely selfish sort of people. What shouldn't be done, they're very immoral kind of people. And then, alasaha avasya kartavyeshu api aprabritishilaha. And for example, there is a father and he has some children, and one of the children is not well, and he is suffering from fever or cough and cold, and this guy has to play some cricket match. He's younger, doesn't care. Her parents got him married, so he had a child. Now he'll go for the cricket match. The wife says the child isn't well. The mother says the baby isn't well. He says, "Okay, you take to the hospital. Take him to the hospital. I have a cricket match." So he's completely selfish. You look at him. He's almost like this Asuri Sampath. He has all these things with him. And then he might just go there. And what is supposed, avasya kartavya, that he must do it. His father's his death anniversary, so he's supposed to do sraddha and tarpan and stuff like that. He may just forget it, even if he remembers. He said, "Okay, I'll do it." Then he goes somewhere and goes for lunch somewhere else. He completely forgets about the rituals in the morning. This set of things, may not be available on a very important family function where everybody is anticipating his presence and contribution in terms of a bit of help and stuff like that. No, he'll just appear at the time when it's time for dinner or lunch. Till then, he won't be around. He might just not present himself. So those kinds of characters. Then Vishadi, what kind of a person he is? Satatam asantushta swabhavaha. So swabhavatvena anushojana shilaha. All the time he's thinking. He's never happy. He criticizes everyone because he wants everybody to think about him. He doesn't care for anyone. He's not bothered about anybody's happiness, but he thinks everybody should care for his happiness or her happiness. Then Dirghasutri. Nirantara Sanka Sahasrakavalita Antakaranatwena. Beautifully is why he is Dirghasutri, why he postpones. Nirantara Sanka Sahasrakavalita. He has a lot of apprehensions. Karke kya hoga? Why should I do it? No, I will do it later on. Let me have this. I have other things to do. Sahasrakavalita Antakaranatwena. He has that sort of a mind. Ati manthara prabhriti. Prabhritihi yad Adya kartavyam tana masena api karoti. And that kind of a person which is supposed to do a particular thing on a particular day, let's imagine supposed to be done today. But he has a lot of pramadas, alasya, and pramada is mental resistance not to do what is required, what is expected. And it can happen to a lot of people because you have, in psychology, they say that sometimes you have a mental block. And whenever it comes to that, taking that decision, you might just avoid it. So it's a mild neurosis kind of a situation. And neurosis is kind of a local dysfunction of the mind or brain. Where it becomes more endemic. It affects the whole of it. It becomes psychosis. So in these stages, it's quite possible because some kind of a trauma or fear or apprehension or uncertainty, that particular person may be good at everything else. When it comes to doing that, he panics, he breaks down. There's a fear, and actually, that situation, a person requires help. That's a highly tamasic state, but self-destructive. People should go out for help, but a lot of people don't want to say that, don't want to share that they need this kind of help. And in our society, we don't have enough trained people who can help people in need, because these things are kind of, it's imagined because we had a strong family system. The families were supposed to take care of it, but these issues are there. So he's this kind of a thing. He's also is a Dirgha Sutri. Masenapi karoti. Karoti na. Okay? Nava ityevam shilasya karta tamasya uchyate. He might do it, he may not do it even in a month. Okay. Now we are going to the important words of 29, where now Bhagavan is going to tell us about, again, categorizing them to three aspects, taking into consideration this gunatraya, this sattva, rajas, and tamas. He's going to today discuss buddhi and dhriti. Dhriti, that patience, and buddhi, that you have different kinds, that intellect, and that nischayatmika buddhi that we have studied earlier, vyavasayatmika buddhi, that you have nischayatmika buddhi. So he's going to tell us how this intellect, it's not general. You can also have tamashika buddhi, you can have sattvika buddhi, and you can have rajasika buddhi. Similarly, patience also. People are waiting, so there are a lot of people in the queue, but it's quite possible that one person's patience is different from another person's patience. Okay, but today we're going to discuss the four verses. The first one is an introduction. The next three are going to deal with how we need to understand the sattvika, rajasika, and tamasika buddhi. Okay. Buddhirvedam dhritaischaiva गुणतस्त्रिविधं शृणु प्रोच्यमानमशेषेण पृथक्त्वेन dhananjaya. This is verse number 29. Bhagavan says, look at me, buddhehe vedam. The differences in buddhi. Buddhehe, that means buddhi ke ved. Buddhehe vedam. Dhritehe cha. And also, the patience that we have, also they are of three types. Cha eva. Gunataha trividham. So there are three types. This dhriti as well as buddhi, they have three types, depending on whether they're sattvika or rajasa or tamasika. Iti shrunu. Prochyamanam. So I am going to tell you this. This is said by me. Prochyamanam idam maya. Asesina. I am not keeping something to myself. I'm going to comprehensively tell you whatever is in the Shastras. Bhagavan is here representing the Shastras. Prithaktvena. First thing that I am very diligently going to differentiate one from the other because it's kind of a nomenclature he's doing. And then he also says that, O Dhananjaya, he praises him because we know that why he's called Dhananjaya. He has the right kind of buddhi, right? He got a lot of gold for the Rajasviya Yajna. He didn't run away with the gold. He gave it to his elder brother. And that was all used for that particular sacrificial rite. So he's addressed to remind him, to reassure him that, look, you have very good buddhi. And therefore, I'm going to tell you more about types of intellect which we have, and depending on which, how we react to a situation, what we are going to do, because karma, karta, jnana, everything is categorized into three types, even shraddha, tyaga. Why is it? Because in our everyday life, we need to constantly be aware of in what state or what frame of mind we are. And that's going to be very critical to our sadhana. Let's look at Shankara Bhashyam. Buddhehe vedamiti. Buddhe vedam dhritesya eva vedam gunatah sattvaadi gunatah trividham shrunu iti sutro upanyasah. So he's kind of starting this whole conversation. He's trying to sort of link them up in a particular thread of logically leading the topic from one to the other without any disruption, and maintaining the contextuality and expanding the main message, because this last chapter is kind of summarizing whatever he has mentioned, whatever he may have paid less attention to, and whatever is required to be repeated. He has to be sort of reminded of the importance of a few points which he has already discussed, but he's going to summarize it again here. Prochyamanam. What does that mean? Kathyamanam. Okay. So Prakarshena Uchyamanam. Vishesatah Uchyamanam. So Uchyamanam. So it's very nicely Kathyamanam Aseshena. Without sesa. That means without keeping something not explained. Then he's saying Niravaseshena. Niravasi Sataha. So Asesataha. There'll be nothing else. So niravasi sataha yathavat. Yathavat means exactly the way it is, without any imagination brought in, without giving my own opinion or anything. Of course, it's the law of the universe. He's not giving his opinion here. He's just trying to summarize the shastra. Yathavat pruthatvena. Pruthatvena means what? Vivekataha. Because why? That pruthaktva is separation, analytical distinctions you're going to bring in. Whether you do chemical analysis or you do philosophical analysis, what does it involve? It involves an act of segregation, X from Y, Y from Z, based on some sort of discrimination, some sort of vichara and contemplation, saying that, okay, these are different kind of questions, these are other set of questions. Let's first segregate them, then we analyze, then we bring them together to make sense of the whole concept or the whole debate that we are dealing with. Yeah, that's all he's mentioning here. Digvijaya Manusham Daivam cha Prabhutam. In this Rajasuya Yajna, when it was happening, he had defeated all the kingdoms, the kings, as well as even the celestial beings, Prabhutam. Dhanam Ajayata Tena Aso Dhananjayo Arjuna. And then that's why he's addressed as Dhananjaya. We have discussed that earlier. Let's look at whatever little he mentions. Madhusudana. Tadivam jnana karma cha karta cha traividya gunabhedatah iti vakyatam. So jnanam karma karta. So and tridha eva gunabhedatah, that he has mentioned earlier, right? Samprati right now. Dhriti utsaha samanvitaha. That is what sattvika karta. Dhriti and Utsaha, patience and enthusiasm. Who is this guy? Sattvika Karta. Suchitayoha and Ityatra Suchitayoho Buddhir Dhritayoscha Traividyam Pratijanite. He has used one word because Madhusudan Saraswati is trying to give significance, giving it a context as to why Bhagwan started talking about Dhriti, because he has brought in that word, that dhriti and utshaha. You need to have a lot of patience. That means only utshaha will make you very rajasic and restless. You will jump around. So utsaha, but with some patience. So you should be enthusiastic, but not overexcited, to lose focus, to be unable to hold yourself at a particular task which requires some time. Therefore, Bhagavan brought in those two words that you need to have. High level of responsiveness would involve enthusiasm, alertness, right? And at the same time, it will also require us to be very patient. And we need to be very mindful and attentive to whatever we are trying to deliver. Now, therefore, because he has already mentioned that the karma and gaya and jnana and karta, all this, karya, karma, karta, these are all tridha eva, gunataha. Therefore, now he is going to talk about dhriti and buddhi, how there are three types. बुद्धे अध्यवसायदि वृत्तिमत्या धृतेश्च तद वृत्तेः सत्वादि गुणतः त्रिविधम एव भेदम मया त्वाम प्रति. Now first let's go one by one. What is this buddhi? Of buddhi is going to talk. And this adhyavasayadi, that is the vritti matya. What is vritti? Vritti, what you keep on another, that's certain movement. There is some involvement, certain engagement of that. That vritti is there in the mind, okay? And vritti is kind of an adheya, and the mind is that buddhi is the adhara, is the foundation, the platform on which a lot of thoughts are coming. And the chitta vritti nirodha. And what are the vrittis we studied in Yoga Sastra, in the Yoga Sutras? You have that pramana. These vrittis are there, five types of vrittis, right? And so you have pramana, viparjaya, vikalapa, smriti, and nidra. These are the pancha vrittis. And in that, there are layatmaka vrittis, that you have nidra. Vikshepatmaka, other four. So your mind is all the time indulging in some sort of an activity, some sort of a movement. Very subtle movements of which sometimes we are not even aware. Like in dream, a lot of vrittis are continuing, and then we see a lot of things, but then our mind is having that vritti, but we are not in control of it. Similarly, this mind, this buddhi, the intellect, also has a lot of vrittis, and we're going to discuss that. So what is he saying? That adhyavasayadi. Like, for example, you want to deliberate, you want to reach a conclusion about something. That is the adhyavasaya, nishchayatmaka, adi, vritti, matya, with this. Now, the buddhi is vrittimati, or vrittimat, whatever you call it. It's Srilinga, so vrittimati. The vritti is there in the intellect. Okay? So, therefore, he's saying, vrittimatya dhritescha, and also of dhriti. Tad vrittehe, and this dharya is also one vritti of the buddhi. This all desires and everything, these are all vrittis of the buddhi. And this dhriti, the dharya, is also one function, one movement of that mind. Because we have studied there like mudha, kipta, vikshipta, ekagra, and nirudha. So these are different ways in which the mind is functioning, and it sort of becomes subtler and calmer and more balanced, isn't it? So dharya will be more possible when a person is not in kipta or mudha, but when he is in vikshipta state, and he has good amount of he's almost reaching that ekagra state, so he's having great amount of patience. Vikshipta, but he has some sort of a samahita attention when he's trying to deliver something. He's very mindful. And therefore, what does he say here? Yeah. Tad dhritescha satvadi guna trividham eva bhedam. And these vritti, this buddhi and dhriti both are also of three types. The differences of three types. Maya tvam prati. Okay, then I'm going to tell Vakt Vyakta Ala. What is written here? Okay, Prati Tyaktya Alasyena. Okay, now at the end, Vyakta Alasyena. Finally, he will mention about that Buddhi, which is of the Tamasika person. Okay, Parama Aptena. And then Parama Aptena Pruchyamana Avisheshena Nidavasesam Prithaktvena. Here upadaya vivekena. All this is mentioned sattva, tamas, and rajas because he essentially is mentioning all that so that we draw a line and say this is here. We should avoid it. Tamasika, rajasika, as much as you avoid tamasika, fine. Rajasika, you pick up the positive aspects. Try to focus on the balance, that sattvic aspect. Hyopadaya vivekena shrunu. Shrotum savadhanu bhava. You try to be attentive. He Dhananjaya iti Digvijaya prasiddham mahimanam suichan protsahayati. And we have discussed that again and again. He sort of encourages him. Atra idam chintyate. Then we think about it. Kimatra buddhi sabdena vritti matra abhipriyatam kingva vritti mat antakaranam. He's bringing in a bit of academic discussion here. It's very interesting. Let's pay attention to it. What he's saying is, what is this buddhi here? Buddhi, vritti mat antakarana. The antakarana is that manabuddhi chitta ahankara. Broadly, it's mind. A lot of people use that antakarana as buddhi. That's not a problem. The vritti mat antakarana. That means antakarana having certain thing going on there, some kind of a vritti there. Vritti mat antakarana or Kingba Brittimat Antakaranam. Okay? Savdena Britti Matram. That buddhi, what do you mean? The thoughts that are happening, any kind of movement that is happening, that Britti Matram you're talking about, or Brittimat Antakaranam. That mind which has a few thoughts, has a certain orientation or a certain disposition. What are you having in your mind? That is a saying. Prathame Jnanam Prithak Vaktavyam. Now, if you're talking about Vritti Matram, we have already discussed three kinds of Jnanam. It's already mentioned, and then you tell us Jnane already separately mentioned. Ditye Kartra Prithak Vaktavyaha, and then you have to mention the Karta. If you say that Vrittimat Antakaranam, actually that is Karta. That has also been discussed, and that is separately mentioned also. Vrittimat antakaranasya eva kartritvad jnanadhrityoho prithak kathana vaithyam cha. When you have already had some discussion about types of jnana, we have discussed sattvika jnana, rajasika jnana, and tamasika jnana. We have also discussed sattvika karta, rajasika karta, and tamasika karta. What is that karta? Vrittimat adhikaranam. Because that is karta. Because Atma is not karta, we have discussed, we have Vedantis. So who is that karta? That particular thing, that mind, which sort of thinks it's the agent and it wants to take credit for whatever happens through this karyakarana sanghata. He wants to sort of, he wants to do that adhyasa, that I am the person, I am doing everything. He gets trapped because of that. Now, that we have already done it. So why do you separately need to have a discussion on three types of buddhi? End of the day, either it is vritti matra or it is vritti mat antakarana. Either way, it is becoming jnana or karta, and that we have discussed, and it becomes useless to talk about it again. Nachet. Okay? Na cha ichchadi parisankhyaartham tat. Now, he's saying you cannot also argue that we are having this particular buddhi thing that we are, because we want to discuss this intellect. It's separate from desire, which is a very emotional movement of the mind. The intellect is what? Cognitive, it's analyzing. When you talk about desire, you talk about inclination, affinity, aspiration. There's an element of emotion coming in there. There is an element of attachment coming in, raga, dvesha, everything comes in there. That ichcha thing comes in. Are you trying to distinguish it? That's why I mentioned Vrittimat antakarana traividya kathanena sarvasam api tad vrittinam traividyasya vivakhitatvat. And then he says, yeah, if you say Vrittimat antakarana, that whenever, the moment you say Vrittimat antakarana, think about it. Ichcha is one vritti, right? And then this whole jnana and whatever, that is also another vritti. The moment you bring in vritti mat antakarana, then ichcha and everything will be included here. So it will be futile to say that we're talking about buddhi separate from ichcha, and that's why we are trying to make them a free types. Uchyate. Now the Guru comes. बताते हैं आपको क्या है मामला. Let me explain to you. Antakarana upahitah chidabhasah karta. What is that karta? He's giving a very good definition. Antakarana upahitah chidabhasah. That chidabhasa, which is essentially a reflection. Okay? And this particular chidabhasa, it's not Chaitanya. It appears as if it's consciousness. It's essentially a reflected reality. So, antakarana upahita chidabhasa karta. Antakarana is manabuddhi chitta ahankara. When this branding happens, and this buddhi vritti, whatever we have, these manabuddhi chitta ahankara, they are an outcome of our own papa punya, of the past days, our own karmas. When they have that upadhi, and that particular upadhi makes them karta. Okay, they appear to be a very special person. That is karta. Ihatu upahitan nishkrishya upadhi matram karanatvena vivakitam sarvatra karana upahitasya kartritvat. जहां पे कर्ता का बात कर रहे हैं, he has a karna upadhi. A karta cannot be there without some karna. He has to have some means to achieve anything. And therefore he's saying, we are talking about only that particular thing, upadhi matram. Ihatu upahitan nishkrishya. That upahita chaitanya, chidabhasa, that is karta. No, we are not talking about karta. We have finished that discussion. Here that upadhi matra, that buddhi, that is the buddhi, right? That is the aspect of antakarana. It becomes upadhi on what? That chidabhasa. Then it becomes a karta. We are only talking about the upadhi here. We are not talking about karta here, right? Yadyapi cha kamah sankalpo vichikitsa shraddha ashraddha dhriti adhritihi hri dhri vi it etat sarvam mana eva. This is a particular Shruti Vakya, and I think we have discussed that. When we did Kshetra Yoga, this was also discussed that as Kshetra, different from Kshetrajna. Maneva iti Shruti anuditanam sarvasam api vrittinam traividyam vivakitam tathapi dhi vrityoho traividyam prithag uktam jnana sakti kriya sakti upalakshyanartham natu parishankyartham iti rahashyam. Now this is the most important line in his long debate, in his academic hair splitting that he does once in a while. Why he's talking about buddhi and vritti? What is the relevance for a sadhaka? Why should we study about it? What is the point? What are we going to carry with us? And he is explaining this is very important. He's saying, look here, these everything is mana eva, that we have discussed, that this patience, dhriti and adhriti, patience and impatience, and then that fear and the lajja, right? All these movements of the mind, fear and eta sarva mana eva, these are basically forms of the mind only, nothing else. They're mind. Iti shruti anuditanam sarvasam api vrittinam. All these vrittis traividyam vivakitam tathapi. That is what we are going to discuss today. However, the dhi and this dhi dhrityoho traividyam. This dhi means buddhi and dhriti means patience. We are trying to categorize them into three because there is a special purpose behind it. What is that special purpose? He's saying, unless we have a good understanding of the dhi sakti, that is jnana sakti, okay? And then generally, if you look at the Agama Shastras, they say that there are three aspects to our willpower, or whatever we do, this whole srishti, whatever happens. They'll say there is jnana shakti, okay, and there is ichha sakti, and there is kriya sakti. You need three of them. You need understanding, and you need the ability to do it, but you also need willpower. You only have ichha sakti, but you don't have jnana sakti, then you will not make a proper decision. You need to have jnana sakti. Otherwise, your ichha will be uninformed by the felicity of a wisdom, which will help you as a guide in this whole process of whatever you aspire for in life. And then, if you do not have kriya sakti, you cannot translate what you understand and what you want to have into what you have. You can translate what you want to have and what you know you can have into what you have if you have Kriya Shakti. Now he's saying these two things are very important, that Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti. This Dharya is one aspect of Kriya Shakti. Without patience, you may be a very good, very active person, but without that patience, whether it's about games, whether it's business, whether it is yoga, whether it is studies, whether it is office work, you always need that staying power. We need that ability to sustain ourselves. And therefore, that dharya, that ability to hold ourselves, be at something for a longer period of time. Lage rehna, that lagan, as they say. These things are very important. And the first one, that we need right kind of attitude, right kind of understanding. Without that understanding part, as they say that some people work hard, but what is important is not to work hard, but to work smartly. So that smartness comes out of what? A correct understanding, isn't it? So therefore, he says here that the Jnana Sakti, Kriya Sakti, Upalakhanartham, not to Parisankhyaartham, it's not to distinguish Buddhi and Dhritti from Icha and Dvesha, all other Vrittis that we want to specifically discuss these two specific Vrittis. But here we are discussing them as Upadhis of the Chidabhasa, and with these Upadhis, the Karta appears. That we know. We specifically want to make sense of it, these two concepts, because they have relevance as aspects of Jnana Sakti and Kriya Sakti. Tatra Buddhi Traividyam Aha. Okay. Now let's do Charanam of the verse number. Uh, these are simple verses, so we'll be able to finish these three today. So first, the Sattvika person. Prabhritim cha nivrittim cha karya karye bhaya bhaye bandham moksham chaya betti buddhi sa partha sattviki. It's a very loaded shloka. It appears very simple, but it's loaded with a lot of ideas. It's very cryptic. Prabhritim cha nivritim cha. Prabhriti marg, karma marg. So Prabhuti is not attachment here. Prabhuti marg is about the doership. And then Prabhuti marga becomes karma yoga when you remove two things, phala ahankara, mamakara, and you mix that with Ishvara arpana buddhi. Then in yoga karma shukauchalam, that karma becomes yoga. Whatever you're doing, that is the buddhi yoga here. Prabhutimcha, nibritimcha is for the sannyasa, the jnana yoga. Karya karye. You can look at it in two ways, and they will discuss this. One is what is karya na karya. Shankaracharya beautiful explanation. The Nibriti Marga is about a karya, not doing things. Karya is what? What is karaniya? In case of Prabhuti Marga, you have to do a lot of things, and you should know the science of doing it. As per, so it's Bihita and a Pratisiddha that will come into picture. In the Prabhuti Marga, what is Bihita and what is Pratisiddha. But also in Nibriti Marga, there are no Bidhis for the sannyasi, but still they are Vidhyatmas. They are also clearly aware of what is Bihita, what is Pratisiddha. Especially in case of a Vividisa sannyasi. You have Atmajnana, you are Vidva sannyasi, not a problem because you already have Atmajnana. In case of all other people, there's a lot of Vedanta discussion and stuff like that. Why? A sannyasa is just the beginning of a long journey. It's not the end of the journey. And therefore, you need to sort of guide yourself as to there is no karya, but karya karye, what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do, and bhaya bhaye. What is the bhaya marga? Once you are in karma marga or prabhuti marga, you may be trapped. Why? Because karma is bandha karaka. What is the way out? You have to remove the karma bandha by withdrawing ahankara, mamakara, and phalavhisandhi. Bhagavan has mentioned that 100 times before. And that is the technical way in which you can do everything and not be affected by it. It's like that lotus leaf floating on water. It appears as if it's drenched with water. The moment you lift it out, the water drops go down. It appears it's fresh. Bhaya and Abhaya Marga is sannyasa. Why? There is no bandha bhaya. But doesn't mean that sannyasis are all sugar and honey and they don't have any problems. They can have. There are certain guidelines that if you break those guidelines, you'll fall much below. The rules are very harsh for them as well. So, but Abhaya Marga, because there is no return. You are not going to any narka or swarga or anything, so you have nothing at stake. You are not investing either in stocks or debentures or anything. You're just not having any transaction with this papa punya. Whatever punya you have will go to your shishyas, whatever papas you have will go to your nindakas, as they say, in case of a jivana mukta. Bandham moksham cha ya vitti, and the bandha marga is a prabriti and a moksha for nibriti. Cha yaha vitti, the one. That particular buddhi, ya is Srilinga, that buddhi, ya vitti, sa buddhi, he partha, sattviki, that buddhi sattviki. Iti uchyate, iti janihi, janlo. Let's look at Sankara Bhashya and also have a brief look at other people. Prabhritim cha iti. Prabhritim cha prabhritihi pravartanam bandhahetuhu karma margaha. Shankaracharya beautifully, very simply and straightforward way explains it. Prabhriti means whatever we are doing. Prabhritim cha prabhritihi. Pravartanam, what moves you, what motivates you to do and achieve things. Ye karna hai, wo karna hai, right? And then, bandhahetuhu. Why? Because if you do good things, you will do punya, so you have to come back to enjoy the benefits. If you do bad things, you'll go to narka and come to suffer here also. So either way, good or bad, there are certain results there. Karma margaha. Nibritim cha nibritir moksha margaha. Moksha hetuhu. Nibriti sannyasa, withdrawal, uparama, and that is moksha ka karan hai. Liberation. Coming out of this long chain of births and deaths. Sannyasa marga, that is nibriti marga. Bandha moksha samana vakyatvad pravriti nibriti karma sannyasa marga, okay, margo iti avagamyate. So there are these two things, right? So bandha moksha, it's in one sentence is mentioned, prabritim cha nibritim cha, then bandha moksham ya cha ya vitti sa buddhi sattviki. So these four words are in one sentence, so there should be some sort of equivalence, some sort of a relationship, paraswara akanksha, some kind of dependence, some kind of expectation. This word has some relation to another word. That kind of akanksha we have, and therefore he's saying what? That bandha moksha samana vakyatva, they are in the same place, and therefore prabriti and nibriti, these two words are basically signifying or having relationship with karma and a sannyasa marga. Karma marga and sannyasa marga. Karma margascha sannyasa margascha. Karma sannyasa margo iti abhagamyate. इससे समझा जाता है. This is how we can make sense of it. Karya karye. Karya and akarya, these two. Vihita pratisiddhe. So vihita karya, avihita karya, or pratisiddha karya. There are two, three things. Something is avihita. The Veda doesn't say anything about it. So can you play cricket? Veda doesn't say you cannot play. So you play, there's not a problem. That particular day you're supposed to do Sandhya Vandana, or you're supposed to do an Ekadasi Puja, you're playing cricket. No, that is pratisiddha, because you are going against. Vihita you are not doing, so you will not get the good results there. And if it's a nitya karma, vihita karma, if you don't do it, it will be pratyavaya dosha. Like it's a sraddha, you are not doing tarpana for the father. Then pratyavaya dosha will come. But if there is something pratisiddha, that you don't madhyam na pivet, don't drink alcohol, it's mentioned in the Vedas. Now a person does it, then he's going in the pratisiddha marga. So he will pay a price for it. That is the purpose of this mention here. Karya karye. Vihita pratisiddhe kartavya akartavye. So something is doable, something should be done, and something shouldn't be done. Karana karane. Something should be karana and akarana. Okay? Iti etat. Kasya desa kaladi apeksha. Kiska? Kiska karya or akarya? Then he's saying, look here. Desa kaladi apekshaya. So obviously you're supposed to do Sandhya Vandana, but you're flying to US. So you board a flight in the midnight here. It will start about 12:30, and that flight directly lands you in New York and takes 23 hours. So you're there in the flight. Actually, when you come out of it, it's still just early morning because you're just, you're going against the time. So you're still be night, and you come out of the, flight is early morning or maybe 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, something like that. Now, when you come out of that place in the day, all 23 hours directly you're going there. Where you do Sandhya Vandana? Where you do puja? And actually, when your sleep breaks because of your biological clock, your morning, you're waking up, it's actually dark. They also know you were sleeping for 6 hours. So they will offer, would you like to have a breakfast? Now, each up to you. You have not taken a bath. You take a breakfast. So these are the things. So desa kaladi apekshaya drishta drishtarthanam karmanam. So whatever drishta and adrishta karmanam. Then bhaya bhay. Drishta karma is what? Now, if you study, you are going to score very high in the examination. What is adrishta? The punya karmas, which take you to swarga and stuff like that. Bhaya bhay. What is bhaya and abhaya? विभीति अस्माद इति भयम, उससे डरता है, इसलिए वो भय है. तद विपरीतम अभयम, and what is opposite to that is called अभयम. भयम च अभयम च भया भये, भय और उसके अभय दोनों. दृष्टा दृष्ट विषयोर भया भयोः. So you have दृष्टा and अदृष्टा. So एक भय है और अभय है, दोनों है. Sometimes if you do it, you will get some the wrong things you do, you will get bhaya, that you will be punished. Okay. Visayoho bhaya bhayoho karane ityarthaha. So they know the causes of this, why that happens. Bandham sahitukam. So bandha is always with its own causes. And the causes is karma without a proper understanding of karma yoga. Moksham cha sahitukam. What is this? With vairagya, you have done Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. Freely nothing comes. Moksham cha sahitukam. Ya vetti, the one who understands. Without any effort, without any trial, neither one is going to be, without doing something, without any efforts, without having any role to play in it, neither one is punished nor one is rewarded. That's the best part of it. So anybody who is getting any punishment or reward, he has played some role in it. So vetti vijanati buddhihi, that intellect which understands comprehensively all these issues. Sa partha sattviki, that is the spiritual thing. That is the sattvika buddhi. Tatra jnanam buddhe vritti, buddhistu buddhimati. Now what is that vritti? Jnana, that this he knows all this. Ya vetti. So what is he talking about here? Buddhi is talking about that jnanatmaka vritti of buddhi. And that buddhi is vrittimati, jnanamati. That is what he's saying. It is having that particular jnana, yatha yatha jnana. Kya theek hai, kya galat hai, it understands. That is sattvika buddhi. Dritirapi vritti visesha eva buddhehe. And what is that dharya? That is also a special kind of vritti of buddhi. That we will discuss later on. Okay. Now in Madhusudana Saraswati, what does he say? Let's look at it. Tasasya buddhe traividyam aha prabhrita chaiti. Prabhriti karma marga. Okay, karma marga. Nibrittim cha sannyasa margam. Karyam prabhriti marge karmanam karanam. Karya kya hai? In the prabhriti marga, in the karma marga, when you are trying to do karmanam is here ishta thing. That's swarga prapti. You want to have, you want to go to heaven, or you want to have a house. That is the karma that you want to achieve. So that kriya, that is karya. That is the karanam. That is the means to reach there. Akaryam nibriti marge, in the sannyasa marga, karmanam akaranam. So you will not do these kamya karmas. Nitya karmas you might do, but kamya karmas you'll run away from it. Absolutely no. Bhayam prabriti marge garvavasadi dukkham. So in prabriti marga, what? You have to come back again. A lot of punya you do. But then you will come back and you never know what kind of a mom you're going to get. She may be a little rude, maybe a little, maybe harsh to you. You're lucky that you got a very good mother this birth. You're going to come back, no? So you don't know what kind of parents you're going to get. Of course, you have done a lot of punya. You should get very good parents, but you never know. Any papa, you might get wrong kind of people as your parents. Garvavasadi dukham. Therefore, this whole pregnancy period, you have to be there 9 months inside, adjust with whatever the mother does. And if she takes a lot of spicy food, you're going to have a very good time inside. I'm just joking. Abhayam nibriti marge tad abhavam. That kind of fear, that kind of apprehension of again having to come back, again being in garbhavasa, in the mother womb, then come out, and all these things will not be there. Bandham prabriti marge mithya jnana kratam Kartutvadi Abhimanam. What is that bandha? That bandha is my bandham cho mokhyam cho beautifully explains. Bandha is nothing other than that particular superimposition of agency in yourself, because actually you are not any agent, you are that Shuddha Chaitanya inside. And therefore, he's saying that so bandham prabriti marge, in the karma marga, mithya jnana kritam. You have this false understanding of who you are. I'm a very powerful person. I want to do this, all this. Kartutvadi avimanam. Ragadvesa, everything, asuri and this, Devi, all these things will come. Moksham nibriti marge, in the sannyasa marga, tattva jnana kritam, ajnana tatkarya bhavam, cha yo vetti. What is mukhya marge? What is that? Bandham cha mukhyam cha. What is that mukhya? He's saying. Nivriti marga mein, in the sannyasa marga, tattva jnana krita, that mukhya happens because of understanding of tattva, that tat padartha. How? By removing whatever is atad, whatever is not Brahman, remove. What remains is Brahman. Focus on that. That is the final truth. Ajnana tatkarya. What is ajnana? Inability to understand that truth. That is ajnana. Absence of that तत्व ज्ञान इज अज्ञान. एंड अज्ञान से क्या होता है? फिर संसार पैदा हो जाता है. माई माई बाप भाई बहन घर द्वार राजा देश, everything comes into picture is real. Otherwise they'll also be there, but they'll not trouble you if you have the jnana. Then tat karya bhavam means sansara bhavam. That is mukhya. So your bhakti who understands all that. Then karane kartutva upacharat yaya bhakti kartra कर्ता बुद्धि सा प्रमाण जनित निश्चयवती हे पार्थ सात्विकी. That particular buddhi is what kind of? Karane kartutva upacharat. Because sometimes what happens, we have discussed that several times, isn't it? So you are making a cake, you are putting it in the oven, and somebody says, cake kaise banaya? Who made it? No, the oven made it. You want to be very humble. Similarly, sometimes the karta aupacharikatvena is kind of superimposed in the karana, whatever is the means. That buddhi sometimes, that we have discussed earlier also, the buddhi is described as the karta. The buddhi knows. Actually, buddhi cannot know. That there is a knower, that jnata, parijnata, that we have discussed earlier. But he's saying, in karana, sometimes the kartutva, aupacharikatvena is a manner of speaking, it's referred to that. That is what is mentioned here. Yaya bhakti, that buddhya. With buddhi we understand. Actually, the karta is understanding, but the buddhi understands is mentioning. तुम्हारे बुद्धि ठीक रास्ता तुम्हें नहीं दिखा रही है, बुद्धि क्या दिखाएगी? हम देख रहे हैं, बुद्धि का सहायता ले रहे हैं. बुद्धि तो एक कारण है, लेकिन बुद्धि को कर्ता रूप से यहाँ पे प्रतिपादित किया गया है. That's all he's trying to say. प्रवृत्ति आदि एंतेसाम व्यक्ति कर्ता बुद्धि सा प्रमाण जनित निश्चयवती. That is सात्विक. Why? प्रमाण जनित निश्चयात्मिका बुद्धि. That is what is he saying. That is सात्विक बुद्धि. Okay. निश्चयवती हे पार्थ सात्विकी बंध मोक्षयोर अन्ते. ओके. कीर्तनात् तद विषयम एव प्रवृत्त्यादि वाक्यातम. So because bandha mukhya is mentioned in the end of it, and therefore everything else, prabhriti and everything, you have to connect it with these two words. Whether you are going on the bandha marga or mukhya marga, whether it's going to give us freedom or it's going to bind us up. Now let's graduate, actually go down, which 8:30. Okay, 2 minutes. Yeah, let's do at least Rajasi, because Tamasi is just one sentence. Yaya dharmam adharmam cha karyam cha karyamev cha ayathavat prajanati buddhi sa partha rajasi. Now he's talking about Rajasika buddhi. Yaya buddhaya, that particular buddhi with which dharmam adharmam cha. What is dharma or what is adharma? What is right, what is wrong? Cha karyam. Cha akaryam cha. What is doable and what shouldn't be done, or what is not doable cha. But he janati, ayathavat prajanati. He knows it, but not comprehensively. He doesn't know these things as they are, which the Sattvika Buddhi knows. Now, there's a beautiful aspect to it. Buddhi sapartha rajasi. So there's a technical complication here. What do you mean? Because Rajasic person achieves a lot of things. You have mentioned that Rajasic people do a lot of yagas and everything. The only problem is they're doing it with because they have some craving. They want to get some phalam. That is what we had discussed earlier. So if they don't know how to do yaga, how they will do? They should know how to do the yaga jathavat. That's why they will do. But why are you saying yathavat? That should be the problem of the tamasika people. So we have to be very careful with this particular thing. What is meaning by this word ayathavat is actually that there is a bit of uncertainty and a bit of confusion. And this is about all rational people. Because a rational mind looks at pros and cons of anything that it does and it takes a decision. They call it theory of rational choice. What is the optimal decision? It takes a certain decision. Not a problem. The problem is it doesn't have the support of a comprehensive overall understanding of life, his place here, and why he's doing it. Therefore, the Rajasika person, if you mark them, great achievers, the Rajasika people, they do a lot of things, but they are like a horse without a guide many times. And that absence of that guidance, of a overall understanding, which the Sattvika person has, because he's generally having that inner balance. He is a little cultured. He has a spiritual opening. And therefore, he tries to make sense of life in an integrated perspective. In sharp contrast, the materialistic achiever is rather short term, he's hardworking. He does a lot of work. He achieves his results. He always is restless and he's always uncertain. And that Rajasika thing is Dukkhatmaka, that we have studied earlier. Why so? Because he is not having that grace of the God or that divine thing coming into his life or that balance. That yathajatha vichara, which we did in the verse number 30th, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that clear overall. He doesn't know that particular thing. When you go to an organization, they tell you this is the mission of organization, this is the vision, these are the activities, these, that, they all do it. But they don't relate it to who you are and why you are there. You're just another cog in the machine. The organization tells you what it is and what you have to do to fit into it. It's your job to analyze who you are, what's your place on earth, why have you come, how long you want to be there in that organization or with that particular project that you have undertaken, what you want to achieve. The big difference between Sattvika and Rajasika is that the Sattvika guy has an overall understanding which is very integrated. We'll take it forward tomorrow. Okay, we'll try to finish. I mean, there was a bit of time management, so we'll do it tomorrow. All right, sure. So, you have any questions, or we will do the Santi Mantras?
Swamiji, the Buddhi thing that was discussed, was it about just the Upadhi, or then there was this thing about Jnana and Karma?
See, that is what.
Jnana, Shakti, and Kriya. Yes.
Yeah. So the Madhusudana Saraswati explained that we are actually talking about Buddhi as an Upadhi of that Chidavasa. With Upadhi, the Chidavasa itself behaves like Karta, right? So that particular Vrittimat Antakarana is Karta. And that Antakarana is, we have discussed that earlier, who is the Karta? Atma cannot be Karta. So obviously we are talking about the Antakarana Eva Karta. Now here, if you have Antakarana is Karta, why are you again bringing it here? Because we had some discussion about it. So he's explaining the purpose here is that there is a relevance of understanding Buddhi and Dhriti as having something to do with the Jnana Sakti and Kriya Sakti of that particular sadhaka or the aspirant. These are two aspects. We are there. That Bhagavan says when Buddhi word is often repeated, so he wanted to pay attention. In one of the chapters, what did he say? You try to have a Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. Ekeha Kuru Nandana. You try to do that, have that Nishchayatmika Buddhi. You have to have it. At end of the day.
But Swamiji, that Karta includes that, right? Like the Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti. The discussion about 3 types of Karta.
Yeah. Yeah. But
that's also about the same. Buddhi.
Yeah. The Karta has Buddhi. You see, this is a little complicated in Vedanta. That Buddhi with a sense of agency is the Karta. That Karta has that Buddhi. Buddhi doesn't become Karta because Karta, actually, the Buddhi is Jada. And the Manas is Jada. Everything is Jada. It's all Anatma thing. And because of their Tadatmya Adhyasa, the superimposition, it thinks I'm Karta. But Buddhi per se has no direction. It's like a computer. It can do a lot of things, but you need an operator. So you're bringing in that aspect. That's how the Karta thing, we have already discussed it. We made a special mention of the fact that when we are talking about Karta, we are not confusing this with Atma. Because in Vedanta, there's a specific reference to Atma wherever we mention it, keeping in mind that it sort of doesn't violate our understanding of Atma as Nirvikara, Nishkala, Nirguna. So then we still have, so he says that, Ahankara Vimudhatma Kartaham iti manyate. That he said that earlier, in earlier verses.
Yeah. So Swamiji, here, does it mean that the Buddhi would be Jada? I mean, like the Jada part is only talking about the database?
No, he said
that has the information.
Yeah, very right. So there are certain computers who can do a few things and other computers cannot do a few things. Everything other than the drashta, that Drik Chaitanya, everything is Jada here. These are all only some are more transparent, some are less transparent, so we call it Jada Chaitanya Varga. But ultimately, other than Atma, everything that we're looking at it, it's all Anatma, isn't it? So these are Paribhasika Sabdas. So the Buddhi, we are finding that particular where it stays, that vrittis are there in the Buddhi, and Buddhi, it appears as an agent because it's like a clerk assuming the power of the officer that he's reporting to. He's a steno. He's a secretary to the officer. In his absence, he behaves as if he's the owner of the office. Similarly, this Buddhi, it has that attribution of agency to itself. That is what he's saying. Ultimately, that the particular game, the only person who is the king of all this, is that Sakhi Chaitanya, which is Kutastha, who doesn't do anything, he just watches. But these things are not so easy to grasp in the 18th chapter. Earlier, we have discussed all that. In chapter 13, you should again have a look at it. Chapter 13, this aspect will become very clear in the first 5-7 verses if you look at it.